Hi, I'm Dan from GigaBoots. During the Xbox Spring Showcase keynote last week, Phil Spencer dropped a bomb about the future of the Xbox. What he said implied that the Xbox One will be replaced with newer Xboxes coming out much more frequently than what we're used to in the console space, and that games will not only be backwards compatible, but forward compatible as well. People are left wondering how the hell that would work and if it's a good idea. Today on the Rant is Go, we're going to talk about how the hell that would work and if it's a good idea. So how would a constant upgrade cycle like what Phil Spencer was describing work? Well, he compared it to the smartphone market. Basically, new models would come out every year or every other year or every 3 years and add new functionality via better hardware. He used the example of how PC gamers get to enjoy 4K resolution while console owners have to hang behind and wait for a new console. 4K is, in theory, functionality a new Xbox could add via more powerful hardware, but wait, I hear a smart viewer saying, if newer Xboxes have higher specs and different hardware than the Xbox One, how could the same games run on them? Well, that's where things get interesting. Microsoft has developed a thing called the Universal Windows Platform. They describe it as a common development platform that allows apps to run across PC, Xbox, tablets, and smartphones. This UWP would ensure compatibility with future revisions of the Xbox hardware by handling the nitty-gritty hardware stuff, in theory anyways. As it turns out, there's always been a layer like this in the Xbox One. Do you remember hearing about the 3 OSs at the Xbox One's launch? There was an OS referred to as the exclusive OS that was a version of Windows 8 that was stripped down extremely. It handled the game code in a layer above the host OS, which dealt with the nitty-gritty hardware logistics. In theory, these software layers could have been seamlessly updated behind the scenes to become the UWP. This is probable because the Xbox One's operating system was updated to Windows 10 in late 2015. The UWP is actually how Quantum Break and Forza 6 Apex were ported to the PC, and the really high system requirements are indicative of how difficult running an Xbox One game on a PC can be. Okay, so it seems possible, but is it a good idea? The benefits are that the next Xbox will be backwards compatible, and in theory, the next Xbox may play your Xbox One games better. But more importantly, the Xbox One will be forwards compatible with the next console's games. This is like how an iPhone 6 can play iPhone 6S games. As a quick aside, the super fast hardware cycle finally makes the stupid as hell name Xbox One make sense, because Microsoft will probably call the next console the Xbox 2, and the one after that the Xbox 3. Between the name and the 3 OS layers being designed into the Xbox One, I think it's pretty clear they've been planning this since the beginning. So that all sounds great, except for the part where games taking full advantage of the Xbox 2 would have to be curbed in some way to work on its predecessor. That would likely be achieved through a worse frame rate, lower rendering resolution, smaller textures, or, the most likely scenario, all of these things combined. Consoles have a hardware spec to aim for, and that's what makes it easier to hardlock frame rates at 30 or 60 frames per second. If you have frequent hardware updates, then it becomes a lot like PCs and smartphones, where the exact nuances of the hardware are not super optimized for, and eventually through brute force it will run better, but frame drops and other problems do arise. There's plenty of Xbox One games that use the ESRAM to solve the bandwidth problems with the DDR3. I wonder how well future consoles with very different configurations would deal with that optimization code. If the Xbox 2 comes out this year or next, then it would likely use HBM2, and that would make it over 5 times the total bandwidth of the Xbox One. That seems like enough of a performance increase to brute force the code to work, but I don't know for sure. The increase in performance, though, could also mean that the Xbox 360 backwards compatibility will work a lot better on the Xbox 2. If Microsoft goes through with this plan, they'll have a new Xbox on shelves sometime soon. This sounds like a good idea, but might actually spite them. If a game runs on 2 or more platforms, then the developer will spend the most time optimizing for the most popular platform. If games are heavily optimized for the Xbox One and not the 2, like near launch when the Xbox One would command a much larger user base than the Xbox 2, then the performance increase will be subdued somewhat. If the Xbox 2 becomes the dominant platform, then the games would no longer be primarily optimized for the Xbox One. These sloppier Xbox One versions would widen the performance gap between the Xbox One and the PS4, making the PS4 look like an even better deal for the money. Because of the economics of this plan and the factors I just mentioned, the Xbox 2 will presumably debut for around $400 MSRP, and the Xbox One would have its price cut with cheaper versions replacing the current model eventually. But the logistics, viability, and value of this plan doesn't matter nearly as much as the fact it's going to be a PR nightmare. Nothing Microsoft can say or do is going to get everyone everywhere on board for this plan. People who bought Xbox Ones and are now disappointed in the library are going to be fuming pissed that their console is now outdated. Around the time the PS4 launched, people were constantly going into game stores and exclaiming that the PS3 has only been around for 4 years and they're launching a new one way too early. That was 7 fucking years. How the fuck are those same juggalos gonna take the news that the Xbox One has been replaced only 3 or 4 actual years later? They're not gonna take it well. And with the damage the Xbox brand received from that whole DRM fiasco at the beginning of this gen, I think that this transition will be really harmful to their brand name in the short term. Thanks for joining me for this episode of The Rant is Go. Please like this video and subscribe, and feel free to ask me questions here or on Twitter. I'm at GigaBoots on Twitter. Join me next time on The Rant is Go when I teach you how to ascend to Christ consciousness. It involves your Merkaba, and it goes something like this. Thanks for watching. We got these other episodes of The Rant is Go about Mighty Number 9 and how you shouldn't buy a video card right now. They're both pretty important videos, so you should definitely check them out.
Just like the wind, I've always been drifting high up in the sky that never ends.
GigaBoots has been brought to you by our glorious producers, Cywolf and Gary Owen, via our Patreon. Consider becoming a GigaBoots patron today.